Welcome to this World Satsanga on the 26th of September 2020 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And I see that Kevin's got some more videos on his YouTube channel called Moore Talk, and it's also called The Moore Show, with reference to those people who are channelers. And the show series is called They Call Us Channelers, and it's very good. He's got lots of different types of people on there and lots of different qualities of individuals as well, so you can draw your own conclusions as to who are real channelers and who are make-believe, so to speak. Anyway, good show. Look at it. See if you can look at all the different episodes that are there. There's lots of them there, well over 60, probably close on 68 in actual fact. So let's have a look at today's agenda. First one is one I've done before actually, but I'm going to do it again because I think we really need to right now, and that is how to navigate through one's incarnation in a karma-free way. The second is the questions that people have sent through, and thank you very much for those questions. There's lots of really good in-depth questions upon a number of different subject matters as well. And the last is a meditation to help the world see the truth and make change for the better, which I feel is something else that's really needed right now. So how do we navigate through our incarnation in a karma-free way? Well, if you can remember, karma is basically a function of our addictions to being in a low-frequency environment and all of the things that are associated with it, such as status, material wealth, material belongings, addictions to things like foods, different drinks, drugs, etc., and sort of states of beingness as well. So in real terms, it's everything to do with our thoughts, behaviours and actions associated with being here. So there's two things we need to do. One is to look at how we respond, and two is to look at how others respond and how we interact with those respond to this particular intoxicating environment, because it is intoxicating. A lot of souls just don't want to leave here, and that's where we get the opportunity to sort of quantify what poltergeists are, or other ghosts or other entities that are detached from their incarnation but can't quite detach themselves from being at this particular frequency. They want to stay involved with it, so it's quite an issue. So looking at it from these perspectives, what can we do as an individual? Well, first of all, we need to observe how we think, behave and act. So this term, think, behave and act, is going to be a recurring theme, and has been a recurring theme in lots of things that I've been going through with the books, any particular previous lectures, and certainly within the thought process about what karma is, and the lecture I gave on karma a number of years ago. So we need to sort of apply this observer self. Now, Satsanga, with the Pathwork series, also applied and was one of the pioneers about using the observer self, and it's a very important tool for us to use. A lot of the things in the Pathwork series I thought had their day, probably around the 2010s, 2012s, 2013s, but looking at the way things are going in the world, I think they've come back into fashion again and are absolutely necessary. We need to go back to the old robust ways of doing things, because we're now a lower frequency, and lower frequencies mean we can't jump in halfway. So the observer self is a really important tool we need to use, and the only way that can work is if we give ourselves the opportunity to observe how we think, behave and act in conjunction with how we interact with others, how we interact with our environment, how we interact with circumstances or situations, and others within circumstances and situations within the environment that we're in. And so to do that, we need to sort of stop and allow ourselves time. I know time doesn't exist, but let's give ourselves, let's just use the word time in this instance, to observe the situation that we're in, and then consider how we are best going to respond within this environment. And that means probably 10 seconds. Giving ourselves 10 seconds to respond to somebody who wants an instantaneous answer is actually an eternity in terms of them getting impatient with us not responding straight away, and us feeling that actually, how should I best respond to this? So if you start to use this 10-second or even 12 seconds, sometimes 15 seconds, you should start to say, well, let me give me a moment to think about this. I need to sort of digest it. And by saying this, you've given yourself permission and the other individual's understanding that you're going to answer them and not just ignore them, but you're going to give them an answer which is a full answer. So when you do respond, you should respond in a way which is cognizant of a number of different things. One, which response is going to be the optimal response? Which response is going to give us a potential for an angry retort? Which response is going to be considered to be non-effectual? And which response is going to be the optimal response that allows us to respond in a way which is truthful in manner, in detail and expectation, but not go so far as to throw us off track in being too in their face, so to speak, too true. Although we should always be true in what we're saying, but sometimes people can't take the truth, so we have to give different levels of it, so to speak. So in doing this, we make sure that we don't incur in any karma associated with that person by making sure that we give the answer that we feel is true, but at a level which we feel they can cope with, and therefore we don't get any links, any karmic links with them in terms of how we interact. So that's one way of doing it. And also it's interacting with ourselves. Don't give yourself a hard time for not responding in the best way possible, because sometimes there's a lot of pressure on us to respond and we don't give ourselves the opportunity to think, give ourselves those 15 seconds or so, or 10 or 15 seconds to be able to respond in a way which is going to be the best response. So if that happens, just note that you didn't give yourself that time, and next time give yourself the time and see what happens. It's quite amazing, because every time we interact with somebody or in some situation, whether it's at work, at play, in a society or a club that we're part of, or just passing somebody in the street, or being in a shop, for instance, we always look back and think, oh, I could have done that better, or could have answered that better. Well, use this sort of hindsight and bring it into the foresight by giving yourself the time to respond and react. Okay, so interacting with others and interacting with yourself in that respect will allow you to navigate in a karma-free way, because you won't be interacting with somebody in an adversarial way and creating a link where you don't like to talk to that person, or you can't stand that person. The idea is to understand individuals. So the other way to look at is to consider how you can feel what the other person is like, understand by linking into them, allowing yourself to use your intuition as to what level of interaction you can work with them on. What's their education level, for instance? What's their intellectual level? What's their ability to be expansive? What are their viewpoints? Can you work with those viewpoints? Are the viewpoints relative? Are they reasonable? Are they accurate? Or are they just self-centered? So in doing that, you can just work upon how they work. And you can also see how people respond to different situations, because they're trying to curry favour, for instance, trying to be one up on somebody else, because maybe if they're at work, they're looking for promotion. So try to understand how and why people do things in the way that they do them in certain situations, so that when you're in that situation with them, you can respond in a way which isn't going to create a karmic link between you. And that means that you're going to have to go into that situation again with them and respond in a better way. Because when we do have an issue that we haven't quite addressed properly, our guides and helpers, they put us back into a similar situation, similar or same situation, that gives us the opportunity to do a better job next time, and therefore tick that particular karmic box and move on to the next. And you can tell when you've done that, because situations with people or individuals or circumstances that you would have normally been afraid of, worried about, get anxious about or depressed about entering into, no longer affect you in those ways. And it becomes like water off a duck's back. It becomes like watching somebody else's issues and it not being a problem for you. For instance, like looking at a TV screen and looking at some drama on television or something. The other way to work in a karma-free way is be considerate to others, be of service to others when you can do, without expectation of getting reward or of any sort, whether it's financial reward, whether it's praise, or whether it's benefit in kind. When you're asked to do something, or when you feel it's appropriate to help, be of service, and that's it. know that you've done the job that you could do to help that person, and it's benefited them. You don't need to say, oh, such and such did this and wasn't I good for them? That's just ego. Do what you can, do the job, know that you're doing it for them, and therefore for their true energetic self, and therefore for source, and move on. Be as kind and considerate as you can do. Even when people cut you up in the car, just drive slowly, a bit slower, and you find that things sort themselves out in and around you, and you can continue on in a calm and serene way with your driving, still being aware of what's happening around you, but you don't get wound up. You don't get road rage, because you're letting people do that around you, and all you're doing is just driving and making sure that you brake in time. If they want to cut you up in front of you, just brake slowly, let them in. Don't worry about what they're doing, just let them carry on in their own problem with their own karma. In terms of the environment, we have to think about how we treat the environment, and that means that any thoughts about dropping litter on the floor, for instance, or about dealing with our gardens in the wrong way, supporting things that are affecting the world, for instance, buying too much paper. If we can do things online, we can do. If we can buy a product that is eco-friendly, we should do. If we can help by sponsoring other children around the world. But I sponsor a child in Cambodia, and I'm looking to do another one. So it's just, I've done them in the past as well. So it's just looking at how you can help people in the environment, but moreover, looking at how you interact with the environment. Don't leave your car engine running when you're at the traffic lights, for example. I mean, these days cars do it for us, don't they? They auto stop and auto start. Careful where you take oil if you have to service your own car. Take it to a recycling centre. Make sure that you recycle paper properly, card properly, electrical components properly, cardboard properly. Even garden waste. All these things should be recycled properly. So even food. Make sure that's recycled properly, so that we're not just throwing things around. We are and leaving it in a lane somewhere, which is what I see on a lot of my cycling trips. There's always somebody who's fly tipped somewhere. Just think in terms of how it's taken them a long time to get into that location to fly tip. Why couldn't they have gone to the local tip, which is probably the local recycling centre, which is probably just as far away from their house as going to that country lane to dump the stuff. Sometimes you have to think about the thought processes that go through people's minds in this instance. But be considerate yourself. If you see litter on the floor in the street, just pick it up. I do. I'll put it into the nearest bin. Okay, these days you've got to be careful, so you need to wash your hands on a regular basis. Or if you've got some latex gloves in your pocket, you can keep those and have those ready, so you can pick something up, and you can fold them inside out so that you don't get any germs or things within the pocket of your coat or your trousers you've got. So you can help maintain the environment by, being a transient or temporary refuse collector as and when. I know there's lots of organisations go out and clean beaches or clean woods or clean the streets by just gathering a group of people together with a few bags of empty bags of refuse collectors with these mechanical pickers, and they just pick things up, and they spend a couple of hours doing that, and that's fantastic. But if you can do it yourself, when you walk past and see something, just pick it up and put it in the bin. Sometimes it's adversarial to say, if you see somebody dropping something, you can mention it to them, but they might think that it's their right to drop paper. Well, that's because they're probably a backfill person, or their evolutionary level is so low that they can't, or their karma is so big that they can't see anything but low frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions, and then therefore aren't bothered about dropping litter. But if that's the case, just pick it up. Don't worry about telling them off if you think you might get into adversarial condition, and just put it in the bin. So it's looking after our environments, looking after how we consider ourselves, looking at our thoughts, behaviours and actions. Don't get too greedy. Be happy with what you've got. Don't hanker after things that are outside of your financial abilities to support or purchase, and just be happy that what you've got is a very good environment to work with. If you get the chance to help others, fine. If you get the chance to tidy up the environment, great. Do so as you can. But also things like pollution. If you've got the chance of buying, if you've got the finances to buy an electric car, then do so. But also pay attention to where things like the batteries are made, where the chassis structure is made, where the an interior trim's made, because all of these things have a manufacturing process that could also be quite polluting. So it's not just a case about buying an electric car, it's the whole manufacturing process we have to look to. Is everything we're buying eco-friendly? And if it is, then you're fine. You're doing the right thing you can do. You're navigating through your incarnation in as best a karma-free way as possible. But with all these things, the best thing to do is to look at how you think, behave and act and respond to others in different circumstances. Okay, well that's basically one of the ways, well, number of different ways in which you can navigate through a karma-free incarnation, and ultimately in doing so you'll reduce the number of lives you have to come to the position where you no longer need to incarnate to evolve in an accelerated way. So we're going to come to the questions now. There's quite a few questions here. Not the voluminous amounts that I normally get, but these are very, I think, deep, and so we'll do what we can with them. First one's from WP, and it goes like this. The following are apparently basic premises of A Course in Miracles. The world is an illusion because only what is of God, love, is real. There is no world. There is the central idea this course attempts to teach. That's what it tries to teach. There is no world. God did not make this world. If he did, God would be cruel. God does not know we are here in a world that is apart from him. He knows and loves us as an integral part of himself, as one with him and his creations. The only reality is God, and this is why all of the above is true. The only purpose of the illusion is to forgive it, and not to love it, not to embrace it, not to change it or condemn it. Can I comment on each of these? If these statements are generally true, then who did create this world, for what purpose? It seems that we're all guessing, creating belief structures to replace our ignorance, and in the end, everything we think we know is just pure conjecture. Totally agree. Right. So let's go to the first one. The world is an illusion because only what is of God, love, which is love, is real. There is no world. This is the central idea this course attempts to teach. Well, there is a world, because even if it's a temporary reality, it's created by us collectively to allow us to experience something. So that collective creation creates an environment to exist within. Whether it's a universe, whether it's a galaxy, whether it's a planetary system, whether it's a planet, whether it's an island, whether it's a country, whether it's a city, whether it's a village, whether it's a house. It is there while we're working with it. So to say there is no world is incorrect, because we create it collectively to be able to work with it and experience, learn and evolve through it. God did not make this world. If he did, God would be cruel. We are part of our true energetic selves, and our true energetic selves are smaller individualized units of God. So when we create something, we create it because we are part of God and we are God. On top of this, the earth is part of a structure associated with the multiverse, and the multiverse is a function of the structure of the source, which is God. And so it has to be part of God. So again, this is an incorrect assumption, because source allows anything and everything to happen because it's all experience. And those things that are suboptimal, or negative if you want to call them that, I prefer suboptimal, are allowed to exist because it gives us the correct duality, gives us the correct benefit of diverse experience. It's no good just being in an incarnation when you're only experiencing the good things, because it's biased. It doesn't give you the full detail of what's happening. That's why the Buddha moved away from being a prince to being a pauper, because so he could experience the yin and the yang, the duality of this environment we're in now. God does not know we are here in a world that is apart from him. Well, how does that work with he knows and loves us as an integral part of himself, as one with him and his creations? So those two lines don't work, do they? The one contradicts the other. So we can write those two off as being unable to be understood properly. The only reality is God, and this is why all of the above is true. Well, that's true. The only reality is God, and it's created the origin and the structure that they are both part of, because obviously the origin is an element of polyomniscient sentient self-awareness within a larger vast energetic structure. and so it's trying to understand itself, but everything is there, and the only reality is that the greater reality, basically. So some part of it of that statement is, I would say, is acceptable, because the only reality is God, which is true, but all of the above is not correct because there's contradiction in there. Next part is, the only purpose of the illusion is to forgive it, not to love it, not to embrace it, and not to change it or condemn it. Well, I don't agree with that either, because the only purpose of the illusion is to understand it's there, work with it, and love it as being a modality for our evolutionary progression. When we embrace it, we work with it. When we love it, we understand it. When we change it, it's because we change it to make it better. When we condemn it, we realise that what we've created isn't acceptable, and we look at how we can improve it. So some of these statements are back to front, upside down, left and right, and they're not really fully concur what understanding, or should we say, about understanding who and what we are, and what we exist within, and what our role is within the source, as part of a level of structure that is basically super divided or individualized levels of sentience and energy to investigate one's self. In this instance, the source is investigating itself in minute detail through the creation or separation of part of its structure, and giving some smaller parts of itself the opportunity to go and investigate that structure, and those smaller parts have decided to give even smaller parts the opportunity to go into finer detail, which is what our souls are, or our aspects are, aspects of our true energetic self. So I think there's a lot of contradictions in A Course of Miracles, but with all these things, as a discerning seeker of the truth, you have to expose yourself to them to understand which is truth and which is man-made conjecture. Once you can sift out the truth from the conjecture, each time you pick up another book, see another video, talk to another individual, which is the correct path to navigate down to keep getting truth, rather than truth incorrectness, truth human thought process, truth human preference. Okay, and move around from that perspective. And try and just look at it. You know within yourself what's true. You know within yourself, using your intuition, clairsentience, what is the truth. Okay, so let's have a look at the next question from M.O. And M.O. is a lovely lady. She's nearly finished converting the history of God into Japanese. So I'm really pleased that these questions here from her, I can answer them. Let's have a look at this. There's a chapter that talks about stone circles and the history of God, and I'm wondering about medicine wheels. They are also made from stones, and they seem to be built wherever they are, with no concern of locations of ley lines. Are they really effective? How are they really used? Do they increase the effectiveness if combined with quartz crystals? Medicine wheels, I've just been meditating on this, along with prayer wheels in Tibet, are ways of raising energy. And so a medicine wheel was used by a medicine man to basically help raise the frequencies of him or herself. Medicine man being both male and female, by the way, and also raising the frequencies of the patient to affect a rapid acceleration in the healing process of that particular body. There's no need to link into ley lines, because in this instance they just pick up the prana, the energy that's there, and the intention behind those energies to heal. They could be used in conjunction with crystals if those crystals are programmed to be able to work with various different body parts. For instance, you can program a quartz crystal to heal your liver, or your kidneys, or your pancreas, or your spleen, or your heart, or your eyes, or your cognitive processes. You can ask somebody who knows what they're doing to program one of these crystals specifically to do that. So they can be quite effective if they're used with the crystals as well. In terms of stone circles, the stone circles were basically a way of capturing or directing energy from the earth, from ley lines, and allowing it to be collected in a certain, or harvested in a certain point. So if you look at a number of different places around the world, you'll see sometimes the stone circles will be the end point of what appears to be a corridor. And there's a place in the UK called Avebury where you can see a long corridor of stones that terminate in a certain location. And this is because it was understood that that the energy flows in a certain direction and could be harvested by redirecting it into certain areas. So these stones, these standing stones that look like a corridor, they are effectively changing the direction of energy or harvesting off energy to be placed into a certain collection point. Okay, so that's something to think about there. Next question is on dementia and schizophrenia. She said, I had a chance to spend some time with somebody who was diagnosed as early stage of dementia and schizophrenia. I felt very painful energetically and physically when I communicate or have physical contact with her. It almost felt like I was being exposed to an unbearable noise. Is this the energetic signature of the dementia patient or schizophrenic patient, or perhaps both? If so, how come they have so much noise in their energetic signature? Well, basically, with dementia is a function of the soul starting to leave the body in a slow way. So you start to feel a disharmony in the energy associated with that, because the soul isn't totally integrated. You can tell that because, of course, the memory sets aren't there, the recognition of loved ones isn't there, and the understanding who and what they are and where they are isn't there as well. But they still function. So there's still enough sentience in the body, and energy, of course, to animate the body. So there's a disharmony there between the fully functioning, fully immersed soul or aspect within the incarnate human vehicle that it's working with to be able to experience, learn and evolve in this environment. Schizophrenia is a different thing, because if there's more than one soul in the body and they are having a let's say difficulty in remaining in the correct level of priority as to which soul is the animating soul and which souls are basically just there to experience, learn and evolve but not interact, but they want to have interaction as well, then you start to see again an issue with the harmony of the energies, because really there should be one soul animating the body, unless there's an agreement that one soul will come in and another soul will go out, or the collective understanding of the souls is presented in a collective or singular way. There are some people who've got more than one soul who work perfectly well because they're using a collective response, which appears to present itself as a singular level of sentience to the outside world. But if each of those levels of sentience, if each of those souls or aspects are wanting to have a go themselves, so to speak, then there's quite a disharmonious energy there, because they're trying to fight each other to animate the body. And this is when you start to see that the individual you're looking at or you're observing will start to talk to what appears to be nothing or nobody. Their personalities will change, and they'll be observing different things that aren't specifically available to us in this first three frequential environment. So it's the disharmony in the energies associated with the soul leaving the body, or a number of souls trying to, fighting for supremacy, so to speak, that causes this disharmony, which could end up being very difficult for somebody who's sensitive to the energies to work with. Okay, next part of this is, how could a person previously to have no sign of schizophrenia have it later in their lives? What's happening to on the soul level? Well, again, basically they may have left themselves very open to the opportunity for souls who are looking to get some experience of being incarnate in this particular level, and use this openness as a way in. On top of that, it could well be that they want to communicate with other entities who are astral entities, and these astral entities are basically being given free rein of the opportunity to communicate with them, and or animate the body in some particular way. So sometimes astral entities, specifically if they've been in existence a long time, can mimic the way humans think, behave and act, and give the appearance of the individual being under control, under normal sort of control. But if they've been open, of course, these things can come and go. Or even if they're open, another soul, a soul who hasn't made its way back into the energetic properly yet, who's addicted to being on Earth, can look for individuals who are very open, have no energetic defences, and can walk in uninvited, and so that gives the appearance of somebody suddenly flipping or suddenly losing their control, suddenly having a meltdown, so to speak, and changing their personalities overnight. Sometimes, a walk-in is planned, and they can change overnight, and that change becomes acceptable. But when there's a flipping backwards and forwards, or the communication, or the apparent communication of that individual with something that other people around them can't see and observe, is classified as being talking to ourselves. That could again be this thing where there's multiple souls in the body that have just, and that multiple soul, the other souls, by the way, have just taken the opportunity to jump in because there's no natural protection or shielding that the primary incarnate soul has got with that particular body. Okay, very good. Next question. In May the 25th, 2019 Satsanga, you had a lecture on dementia which taught us that with dementia it's a case of there's no longer the need to incarnate, to continue the incarnation. Right? The expectations and the goals of the life plan have been for all intents and purposes completed, and therefore some souls either decide to go, but with dementia the soul is sort of gradually moving out of the way. The aspect is sort of gradually departing because it may have satisfied the goals or the requirements of its life plan and have decided to stay a bit longer, or may just be staying longer for those individuals who have become associated with it in this particular incarnation, such as its partner, such as his family members. And also, if you see somebody that's got dementia and you know them, you can just say to them, you don't need to hang around, you can go back to your TS now, or you can go back to home. If you want these to use these words instead, and that will give them more incentive to go and detach from the animating energy of the human form, removing it from its Tantien, the rest of the sentience and the soul seek, bringing it back towards the centre of the core start, then moving back up the Hara line, back into communion with the Tess, and the body will demise accordingly. Those were my words that were being brought forward from that previous Satsanga on May 25th. This is the question now, if we can ask them to leave, then can we ask them to stay here by suggesting to set another goal or life plan and extend the reason for them being here? If they agree with it and extend their incarnation, are we able to heal their body to function properly and help them to recover from dementia? It's not normal for somebody with dementia who is basically on their way out of an incarnation to come back, simply because they're choosing that way to go, and they're choosing the gradual decrease in their cognition to be a way of making their loved ones or those that have been working with them in this particular incarnation in various levels of gradual acceptance that they can no longer count on them being there for them, so to speak. So it's unlikely that a new life plan will be created, because that soul would be excited basically about leaving this incarnation and coming back in again to their normal energetic state. There are, of course, souls who've been in what we call near-death conditions, where they have what we call near-death experiences, where they've experienced the choice available to them to stay or go, and that's when they have this termination juncture. It's not particularly associated with dementia, but it's basically a chance where they can say, okay, I can go, and it's not going to cause any downstream evolutionary issues, or I can stay if I need to. And if I stay, then it's like working overtime. You've got an extra level of opportunity for experiencing, learning, and evolving in this particular incarnation, which may be of benefit. And so sometimes people come back and they say, yes, I've got to come back into extreme circumstances, or simply they come back from an operation they may be having in hospital, or they may even have some form of memory loss associated with an accident or something, and they come back. These instances are when the body is usually in good condition, or where there's a specific termination juncture that's being addressed as being the choice position, where you can stay or go. When dementia's there, the soul has decided it's going. It's already on its way, and so the level of energy associated with the sentience that is animating the body, it's certainly in terms of its cognition, is being removed and is going quite quickly. The animation of the body, you'll notice, is probably the last thing to go, because they can still move around. It's just that their cognition about being here is very, very limited. They'll go right down past 10% of what they previously were, and because there's associated energies there, they can still animate the body, but it's like an automaton until there's a focus that brings them round, and so that's such and such, that's my son, and they come into sharp focus there for a moment until they realise that okay, now the sun knows I'm here, I don't need to be here anymore. So it's very, I'm being told it doesn't happen. Individuals with Alzheimer's or dementia may have a bit of slowing of the process down if medical researchers decide to give them some form of cocktail of drugs that makes the brain suddenly assist by creating or rebuilding neural networks. But you have to understand that the sentience or the cognition of an individual isn't the brain. That's just a function that's part of the body. The sentience isn't the brain. So trying to create something which repairs the brain isn't going to in the long term isn't going to solve dementia or things like Alzheimer's, or even Parkinson's related Alzheimer's. Okay, next question here. Fragrance. I think it's fragrance. Yeah, fragrance pollution is becoming a serious issue in Japan. A lot of people are using toxic products without knowing it. This is perfumes. The issue is that these products are not only causing illness to the ones who are using them, but also people around them. Is there any way to let these people know and persuade them to stop using these products without offending them? These products are also polluting environments rapidly. I suppose the manufacturing process is as well. So I'd like to know how. People have been programmed into thinking that the natural smell of the body is abusive, and that's probably right. But as long as you can clean the body on a regular basis using eco-friendly products, which aren't going to cause fragrance pollution or offend our olfactory organs by being too Chanel No. 5, for instance, or too Yves Saint Laurent, for example. All these different things are basically there to make us smell nicer because we don't like our own smells, but the body. But really, if we're clean, we don't need any of these products at all. All we need to do is make sure that areas that are known to provide active sweat glands are cleaned on a daily basis, and we can use very natural products. For example, there's lots of different products that are available, in the environments that we can use to clean ourselves. I mean, sponges in the sea, for example, we can use to sponge ourselves down and swim in the sea and clean ourselves in the sea. Using the sponges with the salty water, creates a condition where it exfoliates us, our pores. All we need to do is understand what is there. How we persuade people? Well, when we have people who are addicted to being in some form of the material world, by saying I am a better person because I smell like this, I can afford this product, that's difficult, because a lot of the products are there not only as a way of smelling nice, but it's also a way of saying, I'm affluent because I can afford these expensive products. So unless there is a way of exposing the manufacturing process for saying it's not eco-friendly, if it is, it's eco-friendly, that's not going to work. But we need to understand that, if the process of creating these fragrances isn't eco-friendly, then that's a problem because it's affecting the earth. If the smells are affecting people who are too sensitive, then that is definitely pollution. So there needs to be something there. But in real terms, we just need to reprogram people, probably from an early age, to be clean and use natural products that are available without massive amounts of production to create them. Okay, so that's how to do it. It's to look at all of the natural things. For instance, there is various different locations around the world where people don't have toothbrushes, but they chew on a certain stick, and that stick has a certain wood, and it sterilises and neutralises the opportunity for bacteria to be in the mouth, and it also chewing the stick also removes plaque. So understanding how we used to do things naturally in the old days and keep clean naturally is the way to remove our dependency upon expensive products that make us look or smell beautiful. We need to understand, we need to train ourselves into recognising that the beauty is the soul, not the body. The body is simply a motor car, simply a vehicle that we're using to be able to experience, learn and evolve in this low frequency environment. And addiction to all sorts of products that make us look good or feel good about ourselves is simply karmic. Okay, so the next question is the psychic shield effective to protect ourselves from pollution? If we can protect ourselves from viruses via psychic shield, then are we able to protect ourselves from many other things, including chemicals? Again, yes, but it's not a case of believing it, it's knowing it. You can program the psychic shield to create a condition where your frequency is naturally higher, and in a place where things that would affect us chemically won't affect us, because our frequency puts our structure to a level where it's a higher frequency, and therefore it's a bit like making a fishing net a bigger denier, so to speak. Yeah? If you have a smaller denier, like say denier 5 or 10, then that's very fine weave. If you have it like 100 or 300, there's big gaps in between, and so increasing the frequency of the body makes us less dense, the small denier. The density is the smaller denier, to being really higher frequency, which is really less dense. Okay, which is the sort of bigger denier, so to speak. I don't know if I've got that right, the right way around. You have to ask ladies who wear stockings and things. But basically, I think it's the denier is to do with the thickness of the weave and stuff. But basically, I'm having a bit of a laugh now with myself. If you think about our current situation, is that think of it in terms of let's think of it in terms of ice. Okay, if we think of our human body as ice, and we raise the frequencies, it becomes water. So the density of the molecules is less dense because they're not so packed together. They're packed together with ice because they've got no energy. When you give them more energy, they get further apart, and that breaks down the structure from being in stasis to being fluid. If you give it even more frequency, that water becomes steam or air, because it's got more frequency, more energy, and therefore the distance in between the molecules is even further apart. And if you give it even more energy, it becomes even more diffuse. So if you think of the gaps in between the molecules as being a function of frequency, so the lower the frequency, the smaller the gaps, so chemicals can attach themselves because they can't get through. And then you have higher frequency, massive gaps, chemicals can't stick to them because there's huge gaps where there's mostly space and no particles there, no structure there. Okay, so think of it like that. That's the way to think about it. Okay, so higher frequency, creating the psychic shield is the best way to do it. You can program the psychic shield to make you a higher frequency so that you don't get attached to or chemicals can't stick to your physical body because you're too high a frequency. It goes through the gaps, so to speak. Okay. I apologise if I got the statement on denier wrong. I know the denier is a function of weave, but I'm not an expert. so it's if it's completely back to front, then I apologise. But you get the idea with the use of the ice to a gas as being the other alternative way of thinking about it. Okay. I think the higher the denier number, the denser it is. The lower the denier number, the smaller the weave is. That's probably what it is. Anyway, the last question. Animals are an integral part of the ecostructure and help us to maintain nature. But in some regions where animals are introduced to the lands, they are not native to theirs. They are causing destructions to the environments, endangering many other species, including plants' lives. It seems that they are creating imbalance to nature. The cause of all this is human, of course. Is there any way which we can restore the balance to these regions, or do they restore the balance by taking on many centuries if they're left untouched? Two ways. One is to remove the animals that aren't indigenous to the environment and put them back in the environment that they are indigenous to. But that means that those that are already there are out of balance because there's too many animals there, the same sort. Or you'd have to leave things as they are and let nature sort itself out. The problem with, we have in England, we had the problem with the grey squirrels and the red squirrels. And the grey squirrels were more aggressive, so to speak, than the red squirrels. So they basically took over a lot of the area. And I believe that there's some similar problem in Australia with rabbits as well. So it's a big problem that where mankind introduces animals or even plants into an area that is not able to support them, then that upsets the ecostructure. What we need to understand is that right now we're destroying and decimating vast areas of rainforest to create acreage for crops. And okay, you could argue that we're putting back in nature because we're harvesting nature, but the thing is that the rainforests that were there, the woods that were there, were supporting animals and supporting insects and supporting other biological life as well, which are all part of a localised ecostructure, which also feeds into the major ecostructure, which is the total Earth ecostructure. So, by saying that we are doing good by planting things for crops, and therefore there's still greenery there, is complete nonsense, because the ecostructure is in a fine balance. So, really, the best thing mankind can do is to stop destroying it, is to stop trying to change it, is to return it when it can do back to where it was, recognising that in some parts we've already done the damage and we're best off leaving it as it is, because it'll correct itself over many centuries. Okay, so as human beings we need to realise that we are, and I was horrified to realise that in the last Satsanga that from 1950 we've gone from being 2.5 billion to 2022, which is only 70 years, to 3 times that of 7.8 billion. So you can understand why the Earth's fighting back with things like viruses and things like fires and weather changes and all those sorts of things, which are, I mean, the weather changes are also a function of the much bigger weather systems, as well as our methods of production, which are polluting as well. So it's important for us to allow nature to do its corrective properties. What we can do is stop polluting. We can put back exactly what we've taken out. We have to work in a very strict regime. Take a tree out, not a whole forest out. You know, we've got the position. We're in a position now where we can operate in a really eco-friendly way and live with the earth, which is also has its own sentience, in a way which is going to benefit ourselves and the earth and every other entity that visits the earth as well. So we can assist, but sometimes in assisting we cause big problems. And we also know that certain fires, wildfires, are an essential part of the cleansing of the earth to create new conditions for the regeneration of life as well. You know, the phoenix rising from the flames. Some of this stuff, some of the wildfires we're seeing in Australia, in America, Spain, for instance, Greece, you know, all over the world, this is part of the earth cleansing certain things. And part of that cleansing is the virus as well, which is trying to cleanse us out of the way. But again, if we are working with nature, we work in an eco-friendly way, we support it, we respect it, we love it, we help it continue to be as it is, then things will be okay. But it's going to be a long-term job for us. We have to be very patient. It's easy to destroy, but very difficult to rebuild. Okay. Last questions from AB. Can you elaborate on the power of our intention? Is it laying dormant in most of us as we choose our life to live by as passive bystanders? And is it through sheer conscious effort that we may switch from passive to active, from living in the hands of fate to moulding? It's the creative, to moulding it as creative directors. I think of the sentiment that Jesus tried to translate when he exclaimed, "Don't You realise you are gods. Yeah, true. Jesus' disciples and individuals around them were so immersed in their incarnation that they didn't know that they are smaller individualised units of the source. So, something tells me that we get too ahead of or behind ourselves in our thought processes, and we must miss the opportunity to live powerfully enough in the moment. I feel the trap also exists in wanting to bring about selfish change on a myopic scale, where that quality of intention becomes weak and less likely to make an impact. Understanding this better in a collective way may help in climbing the frequencies again, and I know no one better to speak on this subject than myself. Well, thank you very much. I am not what I would classify as an expert, but I can feel things, which is good. And we're all experts, you know. Our intention is really powerful, and the way to make it work is to know it's going to happen. Not just believe it or think it or hope it or would it or should it or could it or might be, but know it's going to happen. Every morning, see the change that you want. Be the change that you want. Smell the change that you want. Taste the change that you want. Know it's happening. Not that it's going to happen or could happen or maybe happen in 2 years' time. Know that the processes are in place, that it's going to happen now. You can create a mantra that works with it if you want to. You can say what you want to experience. You can say what you want to come. You know, you can say that we want to happen. Or you can visualize it, or you can combine the both together. But do it every day. Every time you feel about it, just focus for a few seconds. It only takes 15 seconds or so to see what is going to happen. Use your intention to create that which you want around you, whether it's your own local reality, whether it's part of the collective reality or sentience associated with trying to change the way we think, behave and act and become more cognizant of the needs of our environments, not just the needs of ourselves in a selfish way. When one thinks in this way, and behaves in this way and acts in this way, even the most immersed in soul will start to change. You may not see it, but that soul will start to change in how it responds. If you put enough souls who are struggling into a larger number of souls who are understanding how to navigate through their incarnation and are happy to just share their knowledge, not teach, not push it on people, ram it down their throats, but lead by example, those souls will eventually change. Not because it's something that's there, but because they'll start to feel the difference. They'll become a higher frequency by just being in the environment. They'll feel better about themselves. They'll feel that they can make a difference, that they are making a difference, that their own experience of their incarnation is better. They'll start to realise if they participate in certain high frequency things, that not only does it benefit the people that they work with, but they'll benefit them as well. So it's really about seeing it, knowing it, being it. And in being it, you're walking the walk, you're talking the talk. You don't need to throw it down people's throats, just do it. And people will start to see what you're doing. And they'll do the same thing. Because deep down inside them, even in the most evil individual on the planet, there is good. Because we are inherently good, because we're all smaller individualised units of our TES, true energetic self, smaller individualised units of source. And so we eventually become detached from this karmic thing of selfishness, materialism, wealth, power, and start to realise that the real power, the real wealth, is being one with God and in communion with God by being in communion with others. And just feeling that and being it and creating it around ourselves, we create it with others and others get attracted to us and we get attracted to them. And so just see it every day. Be it every day. See the things that are going to happen or are happening. That's the most important thing. See the things that are going to happen, because things that are happening now are creating that which is where you need to go. It's not a belief system, it's a knowledge-based system. Make it an expectation, if you wish. An expectation that this is the way it's going to be. And just every time you think about it, just stop and give yourself a few moments and see what you want to create. Your intention. Use your intention to create. The power of your intention, the power of your creativity. Don't doubt. Don't be concerned. Don't be anxious. Don't worry about how long it takes. Know it's happening. And you will create a better environment, because we are all smaller individualized units of God, and we are God. We are source. And our source is part of the origin. So we are origin as well. Okay, that's all the questions. So I hope that they've answered those questions. I think I've gone around in circles a couple of times, but that's that's the way I answer things. Sometimes I do the same things in the books, and I think that I've said that 2 or 3 times, but then somebody else says, well, you need to say it 2 or 3 times sometimes for people to understand it. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times for me to understand it as well. Okay, so let's go into the meditation. And yeah, we're looking good. So meditation to help the world to see the truth and change for the better. And I feel we really need it right now. So let's just close our eyes, sit in our straight backed chair. If you haven't got a straight backed chair, you can sit on the floor cross-legged, or you can make the most of what chair you've got. Try to keep your spine erect, feet flat on the ground, your hands presented palms uppermost on your upper thighs, eyes closed and gently focused on the location of the spiritual or third eye, which is in between the 2 eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And what I want you to do is just to focus on seeing a sea of people all around you. It's like you're on stage, but you're not in an auditorium, you're not in a football stadium, you're not in a park. You're on a stage where there's no interruption. There's no buildings in the way, there's no trees in the way, there's no mountains in the way. As far as the eye can see, right to the horizon line, 360 degrees around you, the location, the environment, the ground is full of incarnate entities, human beings. All of them around you have their eyes closed. None of them can see what's happening around them. None of them can see the results of what they do. None of them can see the effect on the individuals around them of their actions. In essence, the whole world around you is deaf, dumb and blind. As a result of that, they don't understand that what happens around them, what's created by others, is detrimental to them. And what they create is detrimental to those around them as well. So everything that is done out of harmony. So in that instance, people can do things not caring about how it affects themselves or affects others, as long as they feel gratitude for it, or gratuitously they expect these things. Gratuitously they have whatever they want to. They're not bothered about how it affects somebody else. All they want is something for them. Not bothered about how it affects them, affects their neighbours, affects people miles away. I think the word gratuitous is probably wrong. All they want is self-gratification. That's the better way of saying it. Self-gratification. But in doing so they affect others, and so everybody stays blind. If part of this self-gratification is in line with the thought process of another individual who also wants self-gratification, then the justification isn't necessary for that. And so those two individuals will continue to do what they're doing, knowing that, well, he's doing it, so I'm okay. Well, she's doing it, so I'm okay. And if he or she are doing it, then we can do it, because if they're getting away with it, we can do it. So they're no longer seeing things properly. They're experiencing everything in a deaf, dumb and blind way. The whole world is full of people, not all the whole world of course, but there are a vast amount of people who simply don't understand that they're being taken advantage of, they're being lied to, coerced, cajoled, persuaded, convinced, told they can't affect, they can't change that which is around them, because they believe that this must be true, because everybody around them concurs it. Now let's visualize ourselves, all of us, opening our chakras. You can use your mind's voice, your mentally spoken word, or your visualization to extend, let's just say, the root chakra right now, from its point of origin where the two legs meet the lower body, down towards the ground. Just extend it, just visualize it as a cone, or say it's a cone, and then rotate it clockwise. The rotation of clockwise in this instance is as you would see it from looking out of your body. So it's the same way as looking at a second hand on a clock, which in this instance would be on the floor, and we'll be travelling from the number 12 to the number 3 to the number 6 to the number 9 and back to the number 12 again. This raises up the frequencies. We start to see things slightly different. We start to realise that things aren't quite right. Let's open our second chakra, our sacral chakra, and its point of origin is around 3 inches or 7.5 centimetres below the belly button. It's horizontally opposed, whereas the root chakra is vertically opposed. Again, it's like a cone, the smallest part of the cone is by the body. Extend it out, just ask it to extend, and then ask it to rotate clockwise. Again, it's like following a second hand on a clock, which is on a wall, an imaginary wall in front of you. And in doing so, you raise your frequencies, and we raise the whole of the Earth's frequencies. People start to see a bit more. They start to question their environment. Start to think about a little bit about, why do people do certain things? Why don't they take responsibility? What is responsibility? Let's go a bit further up the frequencies. Let's open our solar chakra, whose point of origin is 3 inches or 7.5 centimetres above the belly button. Again, visualise it growing large like a cone, smallest diameter towards the body, and furthest away is the largest diameter. And again, see it or visualize it or ask it to rotate clockwise. This will bring us up to the third level. And we get higher up the frequencies and we start to see things definitely aren't quite right. That shouldn't happen. Who's let that happen? Why aren't people picking up that piece of paper when they're walking straight past it, or that old Coke bottle or water bottle, not putting it in the bin? That's wrong, isn't it? That's not protecting our environment. That person in power is not saying things right, he's not looking after us, he's just feathering his own bed, or her own bed. Just start to see things in a clearer view from this higher frequency level. Let's go a bit higher. Let's open the fourth chakra, the heart chakra, from its point of origin at the center of the front of the chest, in the area of the sternum. Again, it's horizontal. Again, it's the same shape. It's a cone shape with a small diameter close to the body and the largest diameter away from the body. And again, ask it to rotate clockwise. And we come up to the fourth level, and we start to see the truth. We start to see things that are correct and things that are incorrect. We start to see things that are incorrect and have been described as being correct. We're all starting to realise that what we thought was normality or reality isn't. It's just been created, and therefore can be changed into something different. Let's go to the fifth level. So we do this by going to the throat chakra, whose point of origin is at the centre of the front of the throat, in the area of the Adam's apple. Again, we ask it to grow as large as it can do from that position. Again, small diameters by the body, largest diameters further away, and ask it to rotate clockwise. This brings us up to the fifth level. And again, we can start to see more clearly now. We understand there's something wrong. We're not happy with that wrongness. We're not happy with being told one thing and it's actually something else. We're not happy with the way we're treating our environment. We want to see repaired, not so much replaced, but created back into the position it was. We recognise its necessity to be what it was. We can see those who are manipulating us, understanding how they're doing it and why they're doing it, and how we can stop them doing it. Let's go to the sixth level. Sixth level is the chakra that's got this point of origin at the centre of the front of the forehead, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. It's the spiritual or third eye chakra. And again, ask it or visualise it to grow to its largest size, and ask it to rotate clockwise. And then we can see everything around us, all our mistakes, all those things that aren't mistakes, all the things that need changing, all the decisions that we don't agree on, shouldn't be agreed on. We can all start to realise that certain things we're doing or supported are no longer relevant. It's not allowing us to perpetuate our existence on this planet. We start to question and remove that which is creating these incorrect ways of being or existing or working with ourselves, interacting with ourselves and the environment. We start to see the truth in equality, and that we should all be equal and do the best we can, be treated equally irrespective of our intellectual level. Everybody has a role to play, and that role is important irrespective of what it is. Everything is viewed as important. So finally we can open the 7th chakra, which is the other vertically opposed chakra. Its origin is the centre of the top of the head in the area of the crown. Lowest, smallest diameter on top of the head, the largest diameter further away from the head. And again you can visualise it growing to its largest size. Asking it to rotate clockwise. At this point you can see the changes that need to happen, that those who put us in these positions also see those changes that need to happen to put us back where we should be, to change the environment back into being ecologically sound and robust and repeatable. That we spend the time to create production systems that aren't polluting. That we recognise that no one person should be any more wealthier than another. Everybody's got a role to play. That we recognise that the earth can only sustain a certain number of individuals before it starts to become incapable of doing so. We understand the balance of the ecostructure. We understand how to maintain it. We make a sea change in our thought processes and our actions and our behaviours. We can see, feel and be the benefit. Visualise by the side of you, on your right hand side, a wall with a switch, like a light switch, but it doesn't have on and off. It says create new default on the top, and beneath it is reset to previous default. The previous default was your frequency when your chakras weren't so open. The new default is your chakras being open as they are now. They're not fully open, but they're open more than they were. And this can be maintained indefinitely by flicking this switch that looks a bit like a light switch but has the top which says create new default in chakra openness. The bottom says return to old default in chakra openness. And so all of us flick this light switch up, this default chakra open level up. And so we are now at a higher frequency. Everybody starts to understand, starts to reawaken, starts to open their eyes, starts to hear, smell, taste and touch everything around them. Everybody knows what and how that which they do affects others around them and the environment that they're in. Everybody knows that that which they do must benefit not just them but those around them, and more importantly benefit the environment. And so we work in an enlightened way from now onwards. We don't allow things that shouldn't happen to happen. We correct them. We collectively remove that which is inappropriate, ineffectual, inefficient, unnecessary, unable, inexperienced in our governance of self, of selves, of environment and circumstances within that environment. So in flicking this switch up to new default, our frequencies are higher collectively around the world, and we start to see that, oh, we've let things go. We've let our eye off the ball. We've watched the water in the saucepan boil over. Let's turn it down. Let's maintain the forests properly. Let's make production in an eco-friendly way. Let's look at generating energy by using nature and what is naturally around us. Feel what this likes to be in harmony with each other and the environment and source. Feel the higher frequencies. See how doing things incorrectly feels totally incorrect and is therefore avoided. We'll just stay here for a moment, just feeling these energies. Yeah, slowly come back into the room. Slowly open your eyes. And if you can drink some water to help ground you, you can do, but stay at this frequency level. Realize that everything is changing. We have the ability to guide our governance, guide ourselves, and guide how we interact with ourselves within our environment. Starting the paths towards what we called in a previous Satsanga the utopian condition. We're in total harmony with self, environment, and interaction of self, the way we think, behave, and act. Okay, well, thank you very much for participating in this Satsanga on the 26th of September 2020. The next one's on the 31st of October 2020, and please do go through this meditation, share it out, pass it on to different people, share them the links, etc., as and when you receive them, and use them in your meditation groups if you want to as well, or discussion groups. It's been a pleasure and an honour working with you all again, and thank you very, very much for listening. So, wishing you all blessings. Oh, and pranams, because not about a day ago, it was the 100th anniversary of the arrival of Paramahansa Yogananda on American soil, the start of a new era and a new way of experiencing and explaining things in terms of working with Kriya Yoga. So that's worthwhile looking on YouTube for some of those videos that are there, some of the convocation they had online, well, all of the convocation they had online actually, and you can go onto YouTube and download them, and you can also stream them straight away if you wanted to. And it's good to see some of the work there that they're doing in terms of how they're making us all think, behave and act as well. So blessings to you all, pranams to you all, and namaste to you all. I look forward to working with you next time. God bless. Did you see the aliens in Crete?